Sid, welcome. Over to you.
Thank you, Todd, and welcome to everyone who've joined in person in Adelaide. I think all of you are very lucky that such in-person events are happening. So, welcome to all of you, and I'm very happy to be at the Showcase South Australia event. Let me simply start with our the agenda for today, and I'll be talking about the current market conditions in the UAE, the MENA region, and in India. I'll be obviously touching upon some of the opportunities in market and how DTI as as a department, how we could help you both offshore as well as onshore. Coming straight to the current market conditions, if you look at UAE and the MENA region currently, and within the MENA, the GCC is one of the main focuses, which are countries UAE, Saudi, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, and Bahrain. These are the main GCC countries, the Gulf Cooperation Council. There are currently there are a lot of flight disruptions, being such a hub for all around the world, for this region as well as South Asia and Europe. It becomes, there are these disruptions currently happening due to COVID-19. But in terms of business within the UAE as well as some of these countries, it's business as usual. UAE, if I talk about UAE, it's a very expat-driven economy. You have 90% of the population is actually coming, from elsewhere. They're foreigners living here, driving this economy, and 10% is the local population, the Emirati population. The most affected industry in the last 1.5 years has been the hospitality industry, and especially Dubai being such a tourism hub as well and commercial hub. You see, these are the hotels have been very, very negatively impacted due to the COVID-19 situation. However, recently in the last couple of months, you see domestic staycation traffic has increased, and the resorts are doing well in some of the satellite towns of Dubai and the Emirates around. But the business hotels are suffering still until unless they've been made into quarantine hotels. In terms of the economy, the UAE economy, as well as the MENA region, it's a very oil and gas driven economy. And recently, with the steady rise in the last few months in the oil prices, on the back of rising demand, that has really done well for the economy in general. And Abu Dhabi, which is the biggest oil economy within the Emirates and within the region as well after Saudi, Abu Dhabi is doing very well, and being the capital of the UAE, from an oil and gas perspective, at least that is one positive for the economy. Demand will be affected by what is currently happening in India, being one of the key importers for oil from the UAE as well. Now, just quickly, I'll also talk about India. Well, India, as you know, all around the news, it's there is a huge crisis currently due to COVID-19 in most of the parts of the country, including the main metro cities, New Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Kolkata, etc. And one of the key indicators, I would say, is the railway freight volumes. Almost 30% of industrial goods in India are actually transported via these trains. So the railway freight volumes become an important indicator of the economic activity around the country. And with state government imposed lockdowns and curfews currently, the month on month, because I'm talking very recent figures now, month on month railway freight has actually gone down 11% in this month. This is as per the Indian Railways data. And this is also an indicator of falling demand, probably in most parts of the world. It's just not the logistics issues coming through right now. Besides that, even road transport has been affected in this month all around in India. So that kind of gives you an indicator that there will be a slowdown in the economy. Unemployment is another key indicator. And last year, with the main lockdown last year in 2020, unemployment had gone up to 23% from about 7%. And this year, with this current curfews and lockdowns, state lockdowns, you've already seen an increase of from 8% to 10% in the unemployment rate. So from a market conditions perspective, I think things are a bit challenging at the moment, but at the same time, as Todd said, India is a long market. Even MENA, if you look at the entire MENA region, the population is humongous, and it's a long-term game, which I think all of you need to understand here. We're not looking at the immediate term. We're looking at least 5 years or to 10 years of an outlook when it comes to India and these countries. Now, coming to some of the opportunities for South Australian businesses, on the food and agri side, and now I'll talk generally about both the MENA region as well as India. There's a huge potential for organic produce, free from and functional foods, dairy. There's especially with the with the lockdown and with COVID-19, there's a huge push going towards organic and healthy items, food items. So in case you are a food business, please, or in case you're looking to get into a food business, do keep this in mind that that's what is being looked for in these countries as well as in other parts of the world as well. When it comes to wines, India is quite a big market when it comes to volumes, but still in terms of the market share, India is still a small, I would say, market overall when you look at the entire world. There's a 150% custom duty on imported wines. Australia is ranked number 2 when it comes to supply of wines into India. And there's a, the taste, there's a very varied taste in India for wines, and also there's a push towards wines rather than spirits. So I think there is quite a big scope in India for wines, and even in the MENA region. The MENA region, you see the wine industry is quite organized. There are only few importers, and therefore it's very important for all of you, in case you're a wine exporter, to reach out to our office, and then we can put you in touch with those key wine importers. Dairy and meat again is a big market within MENA as well as in India, but in India, beef is not something which we are talking about, but probably lamb. However, local production is also big in India when it comes to these products. But the Horeca, hotels, restaurants, and catering, they are all looking at such products, and processed food products as well as huge. The potential is quite big. I'm just touching on Agritech. Yes, if I talk of the MENA region, MENA is not really producing their own food produce. Therefore, they are investing a lot into Agritech, and are open to look at technology coming from Australia, from South Australia, who may help them increase their production in this region, in the MENA region. And I think same is with India. While they are a agri economy, but when it comes to technology to drive their production up, that's not there. So they also open, for such, for such technology. And I think goes without saying, health and medical has huge potential in these countries. And you can just look at what is happening in India currently. They are really they need to modernize the health and medical infrastructure. And I think South Australia can play a very nice, part here. And its immediate demand require medical devices, equipment, training and development. And I've been telling our sector teams that we should start, making our companies export ready. And there's huge potential both in India as well as in the MENA region. The MENA region, the population is not as much. If you look at these countries individually, so therefore the governments are doing well when it comes to the medical infrastructure for that population of citizens as well as the residents. But they are always on a lookout for new technology and equipment to modernize it. Talking of international education, I think there's quite a bit of opportunities there for our South Australian universities and education consultants, because I think universities in India as well as in the MENA region are looking for developing curriculums where they can partner with South Australian universities. If you are in the education space, then do keep this in mind, that even online education has really picked up in India as well as in the MENA region in the last 1.5 years. Well, it was already picking up pre-COVID, but I think COVID really has given it a push. And our team, myself and Varun, who's based in India, we're already working with some of the universities in making them introductions with online education providers in these markets. One thing to note here is that while online education will limit students to come into South Australia, but if you look at how these markets are, they're such big markets that you'll always find students who would like to physically travel, to a foreign country for their education, while they will also have people who may not afford to go outside and study physically, and therefore there's a scope for online education, and there's an alternate revenue model there for education providers in South Australia. They should surely look at online education and providing curriculum for that. So it's not really that we are stopping students to come in future. It's just that there is a market for both. And yeah, and I think defense and mining is also a big opportunity. I mean, there's scope for drones, underwater defense systems, military accessories, whatever, that's the sort of defense items which are required by India as well as in the MENA region. There's a lot of geopolitical issues and attacks which happened in the last 2 years in the MENA region, and countries like Saudi, Qatar, as well as UAE are looking for such technology. So in case you're a defense exporter, please do reach out to us. And again, coming to mining equipment and services, I think that's also a big potential in both India and MENA. The Indian economy has a big mining industry as well, but again, it's not modern. They require modernization of the industry, and therefore I think mining equipment and services will really is something which really they're looking for. So do keep that in mind. And within the MENA region as well, again, we're talking now of so many countries within the MENA region, but there is a lot of quarrying and mining as well. Countries like Saudi are coming up with their mining policies. New policies are coming through, so they are looking to work with Australian companies specific, for South Australia as well. And yeah, so these are the main opportunities within the economy. There are many other sectors and there are many other opportunities. The office, it's me in Dubai and Varun in India. So we are obviously limited in terms of our manpower. However, in case you're from a different sector, different industry, please do reach out to us and we will help you out, case to case basis. Now, how DTI can help, we have a, as I mentioned, the Dubai office is focused on the MENA region, and I'm, we also have Varun, who's in India. The way we are with COVID-19, the travel is limited within the region. Therefore, what we are doing is we're coming up with innovative ways of making introductions for the companies. There are B2B matchmaking programs being organized. As Todd mentioned, I'd recently done even an Invest in South Australia seminar, a webinar online. And increasingly, we'll be doing that in future. While we want the pre-COVID days to return, but I think online, the online space the hybrid space will remain, and therefore, I think the B2B meetings program will always continue online as well, not just physically. I am embedded within Austrade here at the Dubai, the Australian consulate in Dubai. So I'm embedded within Austrade and therefore work very, very closely with the federal government. Please, in case you are already in touch with Austrade and you've been helped by someone at Austrade, great, you can continue that. But at the same time, please do reach out to me and I can help you yourself, being a South Australian company as well. And Varun, who's joined us as a BDM in India, he's had great experience in the past working with the American government as well as the Canadian government, and he's joined us about 5 months ago. And he's we both are really looking forward to work with you on that. I think if you look at some of the services which DTI is providing even onshore, we have things like the South Australian. I think Ben, you can go to the next slide, please, for everyone. Yeah, we're looking at, the South Australian Export Accelerator Program. There's the e-commerce accelerator program as well, and the federal program of export marketing and development grants. So please reach out to our DTI colleagues in Adelaide and to us directly. You can, for any information you may require. We are here to help you. And yeah, please, if there's any questions, I'm ready to take them right now, Todd.
Thanks, Sid. Yeah, across the day, it's been interesting, isn't it? So there's obviously a bit of a South Australian story around food, wine, ag. That's a big part of what we do. But then, there's a lot in defence. There's a fair bit in space. There's the tech area, which is, I think, quite untapped. Lots of, chatter, and even at the kind of luncheon and some of the briefings today would showcase, talking about the kind of technology sector, from cybersecurity to AI to gaming, and then creative industries through things like Mortal Kombat and all that kind of industry as well. So there's many opportunities. And, prior to COVID, there was quite a number of Indian production houses that were actually filming movies here. And so the whole Bollywood piece was growing. And we do have a couple of companies that have some strong connections in China, for example, with China TV, where there's a chef, they've done 5 series now of a show called Chef Exchange, where there's a Chinese chef that comes down to South Australia, or did, and then a South Australian chef that went up to China, and they kind of crossed paths and then worked out the different cultures and cooking and culinary delights and everything else. And, for this region, there's lots of opportunity. And for us, probably a bit like the Americas, it's newish. We had an office in the Middle East probably 18 years ago, and then that was closed. And then, yes, we've, worked with Austrade, and some of the companies in the room have done some of that work with Austrade, which is great. But now having a, dedicated South Australian presence there is great. So questions for Sid while we're here? Actually, I'll ask a question. So
sure.
I mentioned earlier that we've done a bit of a retail program in India with Reliance Retail, and there were some companies that pitched a couple of weeks ago, and obviously the Indian piece has kind of changed a bit. We know the UAE area, or the Middle East, is a little bit different, and you're working on something at the moment that I'm jumping the gun a bit here, but it is a bit different, isn't it? So it's not, we're looking at a similar type of program, but it's not direct to retail, just due to the way the kind of industry works, isn't it, Sid?
Yeah, so I mean, in India, obviously we were working with Reliance Retail there. In the UAE, I think the market is a lot more matured, I would say, with 90% of food items actually being imported here for so many years. So the retail market is, very organized. If you compare it to India, I mean, India is, you have the organized retail, but then the unorganized retail is much bigger than the organized. And if you talk of UAE and the MENA region, the GCC, let me say GCC, not really entirely MENA, the retail segment is quite organized. So what we are doing is we are working with consolidators who are taking Australian products or South Australian products into different retailers. There's things like the labeling of the product, things like whatever the halal certifications, and what are the different regulations when you are sending products into the GCC market. I think the consolidator kind of really helps. That way of taking your product into market really helps. And while we do make introductions directly to retailers, I think the retailers, since they might order small pallets and not really big containers of one product, they prefer to work through consolidators, and that's why I think it's a little different. Even in India, you will have consolidators, but I think the UAE, to begin with, you should look at consolidating products and get into the big retailers. Once your brand is well aware, then you look at getting a full-time distributor working for you.
So over the journey, it's been interesting, because it's funny where people think about exporting product. We've actually seen some really interesting areas around fresh produce and horticulture into this region. And, there's been a few goes at it over the years where people exporting cucumbers and tomatoes and, all sorts of different areas. And even earlier today with Singapore, with Kristen, who spoke, there was recently a good outcome with eggs, of all things. So exporting eggs isn't easy, and particularly into certain regions, but there was a great outcome with sending a whole bunch of an ongoing relationship of getting eggs up into that region. So again, where you might think it's all about processed food and selling bottles of wine and all of those types of things, or beverages or that type of product, even in this particular region, there was certainly the bellies of the planes leaving here at night, with some fresh produce and things. That's certainly an area, and that's where we welcome that. And we're all up for new ideas, right? Yep, there's some market access issues. So having a chat with one of the largest producers of kangaroo meat last week, there's some massive challenges around market access around the world with kangaroo meat. Now, they're looking at expanding, or they've done it, but they're now re-investigating things like pet treats, for example, right? So again, like I said before, innovation and entrepreneurship kind of rises up when things are kind of challenging for some, right? Some are just thinking, all right, well, what can we do? How can we navigate around this? If I can't send the core product out, what else can we do? What's the other area we can get there? Organic wine, all of a sudden, is, functional foods, plant-based products. We've got a lot of success with functional food type programs around the world. So certainly keep us in mind. And it's not just about those programs, Andrew. I'm going to do it. You put your hand up.
Yeah, you wanted a question. Sid, thanks for your presentation. You haven't spoken much about projects, and some of the clients I work with are in the project space. There's some huge projects going on in the region. I think about the Royal Commission for Mecca and the Holy Sites. I think about, some of the big new city developments in Qatar, other stuff in UAE. What are we doing to get South Australian capability relevant to those projects, be it, the smarts, the consulting, those sort of services, right through to, the building, the delivery, the, key technology components that are going to make a difference there. I'd like to suggest that's an opportunity. I'd be willing to engage, bring along a bunch of people and get a discussion happening if you're interested.
No, yeah, for sure. That you're correct. There are quite a few city projects and development happening, especially in Saudi Arabia. There's the city of Neom and so many other developments happening, and those infrastructure projects are coming through, and the tenders, one by one are coming out. We did actually, from a hospitality perspective, there was a webinar where I had presented about, some of the, for TAFE essay, some of the vocational, how those support can be provided to the hotels which are coming up in some of these new cities being developed in Saudi, and same in Qatar and other places. So yes, you're right. There are opportunities on the infrastructure side and the support side which are happening in these new developments. And our office is working with the Royal Commission. We've been in touch with them in the past, and as and when there are opportunities coming through, we do put that out through our sector teams to the companies. So I will continue to do that. And you're right, that is an opportunity as well. So in case a lot of you are from the infrastructure side, who can support such projects, then please do get in touch with me, as well as, with our team onshore.
Thanks, Sid. I think a lot of that too is about just knowing what's there and getting in the supply chain, getting on that. And we've seen that in aerospace and defense and other markets too, where just getting our companies to get on the supply chain wagon, to be at least front up and be competitive in front of them, rather than all these things happen and you don't hear about it, right? So that's the key to it.
Just one thing I'd like to also, tell everyone that we, from the office, we are planning a lot of B2B matchmaking programs in the near future. And one of them is, which will be done very soon, is focused on health tech, agri-tech, and ed tech. So in case you are from that, please do reach out to our onshore teams, and they will give you more information to how to participate in that. It's an online B2B program. And also in the next financial year, we have a few things planned up, where, and all that information will come on the website. So do keep a lookout on the website for those, for those activities.
Thanks, Sid. So we've run out of time. These were quick and fearless kind of briefings. Thank you, Sid. Big round of applause for Sid this afternoon or this morning, your time.